So why is Labour doing so badly? Is it Brexit or is it Mr Corbyn?
It's Jeremy Corbyn, 100%. Candidates all across the country have said that he has come up on the doorstep. His handling of Brexit is a factor, but it's not just that. It's the anti-Semitism, it's the culture of bullying and pushing anybody out of the party who doesn't share that view. And tonight's defeat is not just historic, it's harrowing, not just for the MPs who will lose their jobs, but those people who really need a Labour government and will not be able to withstand what is possibly coming down the track. And I've heard, the excuses and people like John McDonnell saying, oh, it was all Brexit. That is not the truth. There are deep problems with the Corbyn project. But you know what? If the Labour Party doesn't understand the scale of this defeat, we will have learnt absolutely nothing. Corbyn controlled the party, the infrastructure, the message, the strategy, the manifesto. Corbynism has been tested to destruction tonight, and this project has failed, not just for us in the Labour Party, but for the country.
This is a dark day. This is a dark, dark day. I predicted this dark day, but I did not want this dark day to come about. I've said that there were several problems in the way that Labour had taken on its task, and that the main talk about this election, meaning the main topic on the agenda, was Brexit. The election was going to be the referendum on Brexit, and Labour stopped, for all intents and purposes, supporting Brexit. This was problematic, even for me as somebody who supports Corbyn, with this kind of plaguing thing of, God, man, you've thrown away the will of the public. Despite what I thought of Bojo, that stings. And if you're somebody who voted for Brexit and supported Brexit, and then now you have to go to the poll and vote for Labour, who, even though you don't like Bojo, it stings in you that they were so willing to just ignore the referendum. That said, this burns. You need 326 votes to fill a government. Tories are projected to pick up an 86-seat majority. Tories are projected to get 368 seats. Labour, 191. This is going to be the biggest majority since 1987, meaning you're going to have a dominant, powerful prime minister with the seats in order to back him up in the way that he affects his agenda on a host of issues, not just Brexit. Ultimately, the prime minister pointed to Parliament and said, they're stopping me from doing what I was put in this office to do. Now, if you agree with me that you want to deliver Brexit, give me what I need to do that. Now, that was his agenda from day one, I would argue. It just so happened that if he was able to get a Brexit deal, he was able to get one. But he was impeded along the way by parties that did not want it. And I think strongly suggests that this election was entirely and almost singularly about Brexit. One party, people understood what they stood on it. Like him, dislike him, you understood where he stood. The other party wanted to get rid of it altogether, meaning Liberal Democrats wanted to pretend as if the referendum never happened. And Labour, the weirdest of all positions, fence sitting. Do you want to leave or go? We want to have another referendum. Yeah, but you're ignoring the first referendum. Aren't you supposed to back that one up? Yeah, we want to have another one. The public got their choice. Which one did you want? The guy who knows what he wants, Brexit? The guy who is sitting on a fence where you don't know whether you're going to get Brexit or not with him? And not just that, he's going to send people who don't even believe in Brexit to work out a deal and then put that deal up for a vote. That sounds like a de facto Brexit to me, especially since he won't even support his own deal after they supposedly get that deal. Or do you want the people who just don't care about the fact that you made a choice about what you wanted to do in the country? The country chose. It chose strongly. We want the guy that is backing up the referendum. They chose. Of course, this is entirely going to get blamed on Jeremy Corbyn. And I've said before that if Corbyn loses this, he will be out. They would have enough political will to get him out. There have been Labour members that have gone to Jeremy Corbyn's face and told him, you need to step down, you need to leave. This notion of Jeremy Corbyn, despite being popular and everything else, for the most part, Brexit in an odd way, and the people behind him who hated his guts, just like Sanders and the Clintonites, gutted him with this perspective. This wasn't entirely their fault. Don't misunderstand me. Corbyn was supposedly the leader of the opposition, but if you're going to be leader of the opposition, the key word in that is leader. And the case of a leader who literally says, I'm going to abdicate in choice because I want the other people around me to make a choice. That looks weak. It just looks weak. And I'm saying this to somebody who actually likes Corbyn. This is a dark, dark day. The polling results right now are coming in. And there are various people who are giving their points of view of all of this. Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, John McDonnell.
Disappointing for the party overall and for our movement. Yes, it will.
It's come as a shock to you, I think, hasn't it?
Yes. I thought it would be closer. I think most people thought the polls were narrowing. And we knew it would be tough because Brexit has dominated this election. But, yes, if it is anywhere near this, it is extremely disappointing. We have to be honest about that. As I say, I think this was a Brexit election.
You cannot blame it all on Brexit. I mean, I know it may be convenient for you to do it.
No, there'll be other factors.
This is a judgment on you, on Jeremy Corbyn, on your brand of socialism.
I disagree.
No, I disagree. I do think it's a Brexit election. I mean, think about it for the moment. You had an election, or for 3 years, Brexit has dominated everything. 3 fucking years. And you get the opportunity to have an election that you need to settle this issue. You're sick of this. You want to be done away with this. And you have one guy that says, I'm going to do it. I'm going to settle this. I'm going to be the guy who solves Brexit. Parliament is on its ass about the stuff. I'm going to be the guy to do it. And you have another party that abdicates. They're neutral. How is the public to select this? This guy knows what he wants. The other guy's neutral. I hate to tell you this, but a wrong choice made strongly will get audience support as opposed to somebody who looks weak, not making a choice at all. This election is not about Corbynism. It's about Brexit. And it's about the Labour Party not being able to take a strong position on Brexit and not living up to the referendum. Now, I understand the politics of this. Corbyn is going to get hit by all sorts of Labour members who don't want to have blame. It wasn't me, blame Hitler. It wasn't me, blame Hitler. Blame Hitler. If he would have listened to me, it would have turned out right. The problem is Corbyn was listening to a lot of these people, especially from the standpoint of Remain. And him being, I'm sorry, I keep using the term weak. It's not that I love using the term just in this case literally applies, was hurt by that. Not being able to take a strong position on Brexit hurt him. This wasn't about expanding internet access to everybody. This wasn't about taking over the railroads and all of this other stuff. That stuff gets drowned out. What is loud and very clear, even as it beams over here, Brexit. In every podcast that comes up, Brexit. It's the only thing that's on the headlines, Brexit. And I would imagine, just like with people who listen to mainstream news here, they probably get sick of Trump because it's the only thing that every other word that come out of their mouth has something to do with Trump. It's the same thing there. The catch here is, if you have somebody who can dispense with that, then that guy, especially with a lot of people who voted to leave in labor areas, they'll give it over to that guy. This is entirely about Brexit. Whatever percentage of people who said they hate Corbyn and didn't like Corbyn and everything else, fair enough. But this was never a situation where Corbyn and Johnson are putting their economic visions in regards to what they want to do and then running with it. That was never this. That was, how are we going to deal with Brexit? And again, one party takes a strong position, the other party abdicates a position entirely. Missing the point that the strong position that the guy is taking is literally backing up the referendum, whatever he wants to do after that, which is cut taxes and that type of stuff. But you gave him that position because you no longer held that spot. I hope you understand what I'm saying. A lot of this has to do with, the majority, overwhelmingly so, with Brexit and Labour's position on Brexit.
I actually think Brexit did dominate this election, and that's exactly what people have made their minds up. They wanted this, well, I hate to use the expression, I think they most probably did want to get it done, and that'll be it.
So, you're saying...
And by the way, mandate 368, an 86-seat majority. Mandate. This is not like Donald Trump winning by one vote and screaming mandate. This is literally a mandate. Do you know Jo Swinson lost her seat? Leader of the Lib Democrats lost her seat, the one that led the charge of, we don't care what the public wants. We're going to get rid of Brexit altogether. The guy in the party that were very firm on we are going to get Brexit done. For all of those people that thought the public was somehow in the Remain camp, you were wrong. You were wrong. The fact that Bojo was able to blow out the doors like this. One issue. Brexit. One issue. McDonnell knows it. That's why it hurts him to even say it. We were wrong. Our theory of the case was wrong.
Saying then that if Brexit is done, the Labour Party should continue with Corbynism, but almost certainly without Jeremy Corbyn.
Let me be clear. I'm not sure Brexit will be done as a result of this. I think what will happen, and people who, I think, almost in despair wanted to get Brexit over and done with because they've had enough of what's been going on and the failure of successive Conservative Prime Ministers to negotiate a deal that is effectively protects our economy. However, let me just finish this point, Andrew, if I can. I think people on all sides were just frustrated, wanted Brexit out the way, and that's what's happened. But the disappointment that they'll find is Brexit isn't going to go away. What will happen is there'll be negotiations for a long period of time, both with our European partners and anybody else.
Yeah, those are called sour grapes. Sour, bitterly sour grapes. It hurts. It hurts. Bojo is putting out his press announcements. Thank you to everyone across our great country who voted, who volunteered, who stood as candidates. We live in the greatest democracy in the world. Don't let Trump hear you say that, buddy. Don't let Trump hear you say that. I'm giving you fair warning. This is the guy that jumped into a freezer in order to avoid being interviewed by Neil, the one that was browbeating John McDonnell. Neil had to beg him to have an interview. Boris Johnson said no. And as saying no, he still was able to get into the prime ministership. Why? He understood something fundamental. The public is sick of Brexit. And if I tell them I'm going to get Brexit done, and everybody believes him because, again, regardless of him being a liar, the one key thing that they believe him on is he wants to get Brexit done. This is a weird reverse of Bernie Sanders. Sanders calls himself a socialist. They know he believes Medicare for all, fully through and through. And they say, we trust that guy. Even if we don't entirely agree with him, we trust him. Because we firmly believe that he believes in this particular thing. Flesh to bone. Same thing with Bojo. Bojo might be a liar in many respects, but on that very specific issue of Brexit, they have seen him Herculean feats in order to try to get Brexit done. And they've also seen Parliament try to stop him. They believe him. They believe him. All right, let's see where we are in regards to polling. I have Sky News going at the same time. So far, 64 for Labour, No, I'm sorry. Yours is backwards. Okay, 56, I suppose, for Labour. 64 for Conservatives. And again, Jo Swinson has lost her seat. Now, for those of you who know who Jo Swinson is, so right here, Tories 368 seats, Labour 161. That's the projected based on exit polling. I want to look up for the moment George Galloway. Now, I'm curious on what Galloway has to say about this. Now, I have been, unfortunately so, I mean, I hope you guys don't think I enjoy hitting my guy. And I say that in the sense of Corbyn. But there is something, it's almost, it's not a bug, it's a feature. It's an outgrowth. It's like, you can't be everything you want to be, because sometimes things work at cross purposes just by the way they work. It's like speed and distance in regards to a particle moving. You know, you can get one or the other, but you can't get both. Both of those things don't allow you to kind of work at the exact same time. You can get a right winger who is strong, but often not bright. Meaning you can have somebody who's a big ogre of sorts, but you lose some of the other qualities that you kind of want, that big ogre doesn't necessarily have with him. And in this case, it's hard to put those qualities in the big ogre, because that big ogre becomes something else once he has those qualities. The qualities themselves having a particular point of view or have an effect, an objective reality. Lefties have a tendency to be doves. And they can have the right answer. They could be on point in regards to policy, all that stuff. And even in the way that they would explain how they see the world in regards to what the world can be. And you may not necessarily agree with them on everything, but on things of economic issues and those type of things, you might get a grand selection of the public to agree. But weakness, and I mean weakness in a sense of being able to push forth an idea, it is difficult sometimes to get those things to come in the same quantity. FDR just so happened to have both. This notion of strength, this notion of knowing that he needed to protect his particular base of support, and not being cowed in this sense. Being able to kind of go in the wind, go in the cold air, and just take the heat or take the icicles in this way. But not every leader has that, especially from the standpoint of the left. And it seems like that's more in line with it. It's like, lefties, I want less war. I want more compromise. And the more compromise things sometimes can be problematic, especially if you're trying to be in leadership and not necessarily just kind of in a group of other people that are working in tandem. This goes back to conversations I remember where one of the women Jeremy Corbyn was running against, the Labour leader, said, do you really want it? Do you really want it? Do you really think you could be prime minister? And yeah, she's saying this entirely for political effect. But being a leader of the opposition, I don't know. It just demands something else, I suppose. Where you need to have a bit of strength associated with it. You can't just, yes, you want compromise, but that stuff is always subjective in regards to amount of compromise, the opportunity or the time where you compromise, especially since you're in the political space, meaning to some degree there's a bit of game. It's been shifting the way that you engage, especially since the public needs to see it a particular way. All those things come into fruition and to focus in trying to do that job. And even though I agree with what he says, in many respects, and even where he wants to go, how he has projected that over the last few months has not been to his betterment. I'll say it that way. And by the way, I've said this for the last few months. This is not new. I've taken this perspective. My issue with Corbyn has put me at cross purposes with my like of him. And what I mean by that is, I like Corbyn. By the same token, I don't think you can ignore the public's will. I don't think you can blow off a referendum in that way. It strikes me as something wrong. Like at the core of it, it strikes me as something wrong. We assume, and sometimes that assumption gets tested, that government works at our behest. Now, I would say you can look at, I would put a modifier on that. It works at our behest if we're engaged into the process in order to force it to work at our behest. If you take your hands off the controls, well, it's going to do what it does that is in its own interests, not to mention its own world ideology. But at the very least, from the standpoint of a vote that's taken, where the public says this is what we want, and the political apparatus that supposedly, again, is working at our behest, since we are supposedly the ones that put it there, meaning its legitimacy is gathered by us. That political apparatus, if it is indeed attentive to what the public has just said, will take that referendum and says, whether we like it or not, this is what we need to do. And you had many of the people who said, yeah, no, I don't care. I'm bothered by that response. I'm sorry, I'm bothered by it. And Labour's perspective on this seems to be too close to that edge of, I'm going to blow off the result. And I'm sorry, having a second referendum is akin to blowing off the result, especially if you're going to play this kind of political game like Elizabeth Warren has done with Medicare for All. And for Medicare for All, then you look at it, it's Pete's plan, where you take certain actions to give it this patina of political legitimacy, when really it's slowing this train down with just enough where you can lop the head off. The catch here is, it didn't work that way. There was enough angst and pissed offness within the context of the society where they had a lens to focus that through, meaning the Conservative Party, Tories, Bojo. And to make it stick that much more, Jo Swinson gets voted out of her seat. Not to mention Labour gets slaughtered with a bloodbath. The public has just told you to obey. That's what this boils down to. And yeah, it burns. It burns greatly. But I was right. Maybe that's too soon. And Lord knows, this is one of those cases where I would have welcomed being wrong. But right here, Galloway's page. Neil Clark. I remember George Galloway saying a few years ago that there would be a terrible price for Labour to pay in traditional heartlands if they backtracked on Brexit. Tonight, Labour is paying that price. Sadly, Galloway himself hasn't won, but the Labour movement needs him now. Well, Corbyn, if he was in power, would be able to bring Galloway into Labour, but he never did that. Not to mention, he let this other gentleman just... Where is he? Hey, I'll find him. But, yeah, this is a dark day, man. This is a dark, dark day. It's strange. It feels kind of like a loss. And I guess it is a loss. By the same token, I don't live there, so it's, it's diffuse. I went to my wife and I say, oh my God, it's worse than I thought. And she says, what was it? I said, 368. He's winning in a dominant fashion. He has a mandate. And I said, I need to be held. And she was like, I need you to take my pain away. She was like, I don't know how to do that. I was like, hold me or something. Now, this is brutal, man. And I thought about this in the context of here. Just like in the UK, I strongly believe that you have, let's say it this way. In the UK, you have Blairites who are in a similar position as, you could say, the Clintonites here in the United States. If Sanders won the primary, do you believe that third-way Democrats, especially the established third-way Democrats, meaning in Congress, would prefer Sanders lose and Trump win? Or do you think they would prefer Sanders to win? He's a Democrat, despite being not their ilk. Or, yeah, we're better off if he loses. I hate to tell you this, but I think it's a better option. They're better off if he loses. The same thing is true here in the UK. The Blairites are better off if Corbyn loses. What they're going to go on television, all of them, in unison. It's Corbyn. It's not just Brexit, it's Corbyn. And because it's Corbyn, because Corbyn is at fault in these socialist policies, the public wasn't on board for it, and he's a goddamn anti-Semite. Can I say goddamn on television? Well, I'm saying it. I'm angry. We've lost. And they're going to say that in unison, 1,000 times a day. It's Corbyn. And some Labour members are going to say, well, look, it's not Corbyn. I mean, the issue that was on the block was Brexit. And they're going to be like, yeah, but Corbyn chose how we went about talking about it. Corbyn chose everything in this process. And those Momentum guys were pretty, they were hyped up about it, man. They were pretty pushy. Corbyn will have to resign. Get it out of your head that he's staying. He will have to resign. Again, I said this also. I don't want, well, fuck it. I guess I do. Man, regardless of what I say, what I'm doing is something different. But I'll phrase it this way, even though I know it's not entirely true. I don't want to say, I told you so. But I do want to say, I told you so. Because I kind of want to make just a very basic point that even when I like a candidate, as I do Corbyn, I can still point out the flaws and the issues with the candidate. I am a double Virgo in the sense, Virgo Sun, Virgo Ascendant. I do pointing out fuck-ups and flaws pretty well. And when it doesn't necessarily jive with the way I think it needs to go, I mean, this channel is named Jamarl Thomas. The only thing I can do is tell you I don't think it goes that way. I don't see the point of propaganda in this case. I don't think you watch me for the propaganda effect. I think you watch it just, this is my point of view. This is what I think is taking place based on my body of knowledge on this planet. And in this very specific case, one guy could talk strongly about Brexit and the other person couldn't. That right there. Now you can say it's because he's a socialist, you can say all this other stuff, but this election was about Brexit. This election wasn't about Corbyn. And if this was in a different time where he was running a race against Theresa May, yes. But I said, going all the way back to the election between Bojo and Hunt, that Hunt has the charisma of a wet paper bag. Bojo has presence. And between the two, Corbyn may be able to beat Hunt in a race. He will not be able, or at the very least, would have a harder time beating Bojo. I think I even made the point that that was difficult to say because all things being equal, that means I want Hunt to win. By the same token, if you're looking for the guy who gets Brexit done, that's probably Bojo. I tell you that. I mean, I remind you of that maybe because when we're in the election season. And clearly I've chosen Sanders as my guy. But you can look back over times where I've jumped on Sanders because I thought he was fucking up. Either fucking up or saying something that wasn't necessarily... Well, I don't think he said something that wasn't true. But if he would do something that I didn't necessarily... No, the Russia stuff wasn't true. Where he would fall in with party line stuff. I hit him on that stuff. Because that stuff bugs me. And what's the point in having a channel with your own name if you can't necessarily be honestly indignant on your own channel when stuff like that comes up? In this race, I look at this in the exact same way. If something comes up where I think is wrong, off, breaks some kind of ideological rule, doesn't necessarily make sense in the way that it's done politically, whatever. My job is to tell you. I like Corbyn, but by the same token, you can point that stuff out that it's going to be problems. And part of me pointing it out had more to do with, even though I don't think Corbyn watches this channel, but more to do with, dude, politically, this doesn't make sense. And if this doesn't make sense, and if even I, a super fan, has issues to overcome emotionally to make a vote for you, then there are other people who aren't super fans, who are not going to cross that barrier, and who may, all things being equal, won't necessarily suffer under a bojo. And if there are no racial stuff, meaning it's not like African Americans voting 90% in the country here, Democrats can fuck you over, you still vote for the Democrat. That's not happening in this case. And so it's like you have a lot of people who might have typically voted Labour have a hard time making that vote. But that's not an issue of Corbyn. It's only an issue of Corbyn in the sense that he allowed himself to be cowed in that way. So I guess you could say it is an issue of Corbyn in the sense of him being a stronger leader for the Labour Party. But not this quote-unquote Corbynism stuff. I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. Let's see. What are they saying?
Well, I think that there was definitely some tactical voting in this seat. And I think the biggest problem is that we haven't settled Brexit. So now I hope and believe that with Boris Johnson getting what looks like an overall majority, I hope a good substantial one, then we have a chance now to bring this whole thing to an end, get Brexit done, get that trade deal that we talked about, finish it all off. The only way I think we'll bring society together again over this issue and stop this being an issue at every election and even in people's private life is to do that, to get Brexit done. And that's where Boris Johnson is the only one that made that promise. Otherwise, if it had been anybody else, we'd be meandering along for another 6 months to a year with no decisive results. So getting that majority was critical, and I do believe Boris Johnson is a one-nation Prime Minister, and I don't think he's going to spend his time doing anything else. He's going to do Brexit, he's going to do health, let's just concentrate. More police on the streets.
Sorry, Mr. Duncan-Smith, I'm going to try and be snappy because a lot of results, as you know, coming in. But just on the issue of Brexit, which you've been so concerned about for so long, particularly under the previous leader. I mean, you've called it Get Brexit Done. We all know it's only the withdrawal agreement. Do you think then that it all can be done and dusted, the trade association and all that hangs off that, by the end of 2020?
I think it is wholly feasible because a lot of this work has already been scoped by the Civil Service and the Foreign Office behind the scenes. The Brexit department have already been scoping out what the arrangements are. They've been discussing those with the EU. It's not as though it's going to start from scratch in January.
You know, he brings up a good point, an interesting point. The European Union, what the hell are they thinking right now? What are they thinking? What are they thinking? Because ultimately, this is the UK coming together saying, this is what we want. And this is what we want so emphatically that the guy who you maybe didn't necessarily like because he was willing to have a no-deal Brexit, he was holding that over your head, that's the guy that the public not just liked, but overwhelmingly liked. Liked from the standpoint of a mandate. Meaning when he goes back to the EU, he goes back fully powered by a public that is giving him a mandate parliament to negotiate this Brexit. What is the EU thinking right now? All right, so let's see. What is this? Conservatives 80, Labour 71, down 13. SNP 13, up 4. Others down 8. And this is just Ruth Davidson prepares to go skinny dipping in the Loch Ness. The former leader of the Scottish Conservatives admit it's not looking great when asked about her premise to go skinny dipping with the Loch Ness if SNP wins 50 plus seats. The exit poll predicts the party will take 55 seats of Scotland's 59. There's a somber mood at the Labour leader's constituency count in Islington North, but Mr. Corbyn managed to raise a smile. Oh God, that smile had to be heavy. That had to be a heavy, heavy, heavy smile. Momentum suggests a leadership election in the spring. They're dumping him. Momentum is dumping him. Momentum founders suggest a leadership election in the spring. I told you they were going to get rid of him. Oh, right here. You're not looking at that. Right here. They're going to get rid of him. He adds, we're far too quick to rush into leadership elections in 2010 and 2015. He concedes that Labour failed to change the agenda. Yes, that agenda being Brexit. That's my point. The other reporter, Neil, was trying to make it something that it wasn't. Any honest analysis has to go into this notion that the issue is Brexit. Now, if you've seen polling after the fact of something that said we think Jeremy Corbyn sucks, okay, fair enough. But the election, the thing that people were voting on, and you can say the policy that Jeremy Corbyn was pushing on Brexit, okay, so I'm wrong. It is Corbyn. It is Corbyn. I'm just thinking it's Corbyn for a different reason than I think they're saying. Surprise win for Northern Irish Remain Party as DUP falters. Let's hear Corbyn. This is me just hanging out, sharing the pain. That's what this is.
Thank you very much. You'll hear us speak shortly. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your comments. Do you think you'll resign? Thank you very much.
What is he thinking? What is he thinking right now? God, what is he thinking? Like, this is a punch in the face. Like, the moment that the election results popped and they said 368, that's literally like a man coming to your door, flinging it open, saying, you slept with my wife, and without you being entirely aware of what's taking place, 300-pound man cocks back to Martha. I don't know what else I can say. And to be honest, I think that may even be a better reality. Ultimately, you've had 66 million people come out and cast a vote to say we don't like what you've come up with in regards to leadership. And you've put us in an awkward position. I've watched the street epistemological stuff where they would go and talk to people and people would be Labour voters and they would be like, ugh, it hurts. It shouldn't hurt. It shouldn't hurt. When Sanders comes to Virginia and so it's providing, nothing has taken place, nothing weird. You know, he didn't kick a puppy or something like that. He didn't sleep around on Jane. When I go and make that vote, I'm in sync. This is my guy. I'm enthused, I'm excited. I drag myself here and my family here in the middle of an alien attack if I needed to make that vote for Bernie Sanders to get him in that office. Lasers and everything else could be shooting by. People would be getting evaporated. That's where I'm at. And a lot of people at that point, they're in sync. What they want from the standpoint of the world is exuded by the candidate. And there's no pushback on doing it. But that's not true here, right? That's not true here. If I had qualms, other people had qualms. I don't even live there, but I'm putting myself in the place of other people who support him. And if I had qualms, other people had qualms. That's sailing upriver. It's almost like saying, if people are going to give you money for something, you want to make it as easy as possible. Here's a bucket, just drop the coin in. You don't want to make it too difficult because at that point the person may have some probability that people will say, okay, fuck it, I'm going to leave, as opposed to getting rid of that probability by making it easy. It's similar from the standpoint of voting. You can make an argument that that's why candidates lie to try to entice their voters. But in this case, this wasn't about a lie or not telling the truth. This was something about a choice that needed to be made. And that choice that needed to be made by Corbyn. But he didn't make that choice. And in not making that choice, it looks, I'm sorry, again to use the word, weak. It just looks weak. I don't know if he was just ill-prepared for this. I don't know if he just got trapped in his own maneuverings, like getting Bojo into this thing with saying, we want you to have a second referendum. We want you to have a second referendum. All of that works providing you're not the prime minister. If you're the prime minister, then the logic of it doesn't make sense. I'm going to go, somehow I got an office, but I'm going to get a deal, I'm going to put that deal up for a vote. But we voted you in office to do that, and now you're bringing this deal back for another contentious vote. I mean, what the fuck, dude? That's not why we put you in that office. I kept saying that the referendum was the election. It was. It was. Or you can say it is, since it's still going on. What is going on in his head? Was he aware of the threats around him and the people that hated his guts? And why are you taking the side of those people in a political struggle? They're never going to like you. This is the same advice I give to Sanders, by the way. They're never going to like you. They hate you. Your very existence is a questioning of their modus operandi for the past 30, 40 years. The same thing is true here. Don't take advice from people that hate your guts. Let's keep going.
Hi, how you doing? All right. Hi, thank you very much. Nice to see you. Nice to see you.
Is that his wife? In the background.
Here, thank you.
God, man, his wife doesn't even want to be near him. Is that his wife? I don't know if that's his wife. I'm partially joking. We used to talk about like playing Blitz, and after somebody getting crushes, like his girlfriend didn't even want to sit in the front seat with him. His girlfriend sat in the back seat. She was that embarrassed. Oh, this hurts.
Thank you very much for coming.
He's better than Clinton. Hillary Clinton didn't even come out the next day.
Come and join the monster raving ladies. Hanukkah's come early. Hanukkah's come early.
He's sexually harassing that black woman. Oh, this hurts. God, this hurts. I can't imagine losing on that scale to that degree. I mean, that's a Trump-Clinton loss. Maggie Smith, big hug to my favorite political empath. Ah, thank you, Maggie. That hurts, man. Uh-oh. Rhyme Target led Time Dark Legend. Uh-oh. Our centrist is back. Vicious E that just shown how bad Bernie... No, but see, these are different candidates. I mean, Corbyn is far weaker than... It's different. It's very different. Michael Williams, seems like the UK better get used to GoFundMe for healthcare. I keep saying they're going to rape the NHS blind. I just was talking to Javon needs to get his dog bone camera. Oh no, he's too huge. New BBC projection, 357 to 301. Oh, that's a little better. That's a little better. Not bad. Not bad. Look, Sanders is different. I mean, Corbyn is far weaker than him. I mean, in temperament and tone, all of that stuff. It's different. I even get a sense of threat detection being somewhat different. Meaning, he got cheated once. And so whatever he says in the public, I would imagine he's aware that he got cheated once. I think he's clear on the Democratic Party not liking him. I don't think it's behind the scenes. He's very aware that they don't like him and that they've been trying to find ways to stop him. Now, whether he talks about that or not, he may bring up the Democratic establishment and this type of stuff. I'm pretty sure he's aware of it. Whether he does anything or not, who knows? I would hope so. But ultimately, he's aware of it. I would hope that Jeremy Corbyn was aware of that type of stuff, but it doesn't seem like... I don't know. He's different. He's weaker. And I mean weaker in the standpoint of temperament and tone. It's not the policy thing. It's almost a him thing. Not to mention you have this overarching thing of Brexit where he doesn't take a position on. I mean, for fuck's sake, you and I are in an election, and the main topic of that election, let's say, is healthcare. One person says, yes, I want Medicare for all, and the other person says, well, look, I'm going to hold up for a referendum what the public wants, and then we can kind of make a choice and try to figure out how to do it afterwards. It's like, yeah, but what do you want? What do you want? Are you looking for something of staying the way it is, or are you looking for Medicare for all, or something in between? Well, I'm going to put that up for a vote to the public. A vote in which I'm not going to make a choice one way or the other. So I'm not going to tell you where I stand on that. What? Like, if you apply what just took place to any other issue, it doesn't make any sense. You can't abdicate. You can't punt the ball in that way. The public needs to know what you're going to do. Are you going to stay? Are you going to go? And if you tell them, well, I'm going to have another contentious referendum, then they may say, well, look, I will go with the person who knows what they want. This guy wants to leave. I may not agree with him on everything, but he wants to leave. Yeah, this is not the same. We have no overarching issue like this in our politics. And certainly no overarching issue with a person who's running around with an albatross in an election on Brexit, and they can't take an opinion on Brexit. It doesn't apply to our politics. And in such a weird way, it doesn't apply. Maybe Galloway was right. I mean, Galloway's thing was, look, let him get his Brexit and then fight after the Brexit. It's almost impossible to win the election on this topic of Brexit while this thing is an overarching issue. So maybe he was right. Maybe he was right. Let's see the rest of Corbyn. This hurts. This hurts.
We love you, Jeremy.
Hi, hello.
Who's that sister behind Corbyn? Is she a political person? She looks like she's looking for Corbyn. Corbyn, in this very short time, has found out plenty of sisters. Maybe there's a taste for chocolate there that he's hiding. I'm trying to make a joke of this, yes, because this is a dark, dark day. He didn't just lose, he got stumped. It wasn't just beat up the nerd in the schoolyard. It was also breaking his glasses and stomping on his nuts just for giggles. This was bad. It's a dark day. He came out at the very least and faced the public. Jo Swinson didn't show up at her campaign event. Her theory of the case was wrong also. The colors are inverted, so red is Labour. Oh, this hurts. I'm going to share my pain with you guys. Yeah. I did warn you, though, if nothing else. You were warned. Let's see what's going on, Sky. All right, let's hear what's going on here.
Harding, Monica Bernadette Ethelreda, 28,389. 28,389. Keynes, Kylie, 347. 347. Rob, Dominic Rennie, 31,132.
Dominic Raab keeps his seat.
Well, he has held on a big effort there to get rid of him. The Liberal Democrats running him very close on 28,000. The Labour vote dropping down to 2,800.
Wow.
132.
Dominic Raab back there, another important seat. Richmond Park declaring. Zach Goldsmith trying to hold on for the Conservatives.
Olney, Sarah Jane, Liberal Democrats, 34,559. Shah, Caroline Teresa, Independent, 247.
There we go. You can see for yourselves, the Lib Dems have taken it. Sarah Olney ejecting Zach Goldsmith from Richmond Park. He's rather yo-yoed there, bringing a by-election himself, which he lost over the issue of expansion of Heathrow Airport. He got back in. Well, he's out again now. And first Lib Dem gain of the evening. Let's go to Anna Botting, talking about the big beast now. Anna Botting is in Uxbridge.
You know, just so we're clear on this, the election is the referendum. The party that was going to institute Brexit gets a stomping advantage, at least if this keeps up. The Lib Dems are only just now getting on the scoreboard. That was the group that wanted to fundamentally just get rid of the referendum itself, just revoke Article 50. Their main person, leader of that party, lost. They lost. It seems that what the public wanted, after all, was Brexit, and to get it over with. I don't know what the scuffle is about. I think they're about to announce, so let's hear what's going on. Damn it! What happened? What happened? What happened? What happened?
And this sort of extreme right-wing violence will not be tolerated within our society. Thank you very much.
So the response there of John McDonnell as he walks away, but it shows really the febrile atmosphere that we've been brought to during this campaign, and now he, of course, blaming the far right. We have to say, do not know who it was who was scuffling there in the background, but even during the postal voting, we saw arguments here as well, so clearly tensions running high. Kate McCann, you're here certainly. Very extraordinary scenes here at a count with somebody so senior, Shadow Chancellor.
Yeah, you can really feel the tension in the room, and you could see there from that footage just how kind of violent really that fight was. It was a proper punch thrown. Somebody was punched in the head. John McDonnell, before that happened, was making a speech which sounded very much to me a bit like a leadership pitch. We've heard Labour MPs across the country say, Ruth Smeeth very pointedly before, that Jeremy Corbyn should have announced his resignation.
Leaving Uxbridge to go to the result in Islington North, Jeremy Corbyn's seat.
Announcing the results of Islington North. Thank you.
I, Lindsay Roberts-Egan, being the acting returning officer at the election of a Member of Parliament for the Islington North constituency, held on Thursday, the 12th of December 2019, do hereby give notice that the number of votes recorded for each candidate at the said election is as follows. Nicholas Charles Ellsworth de Elves, known as Nick the Incredible Flying Brick, the official Monster Raving Loony Party, 236. James Clark, Conservative and Unionist Party, 5,483. Jeremy Bernard Corbyn, Labour Party, 34,603. Yosef Haim David, Brexit Party, 742. Caroline Russell, Green Party, 4,326. Nicholas Richard Wakeling, known as Nick Wakeling, Liberal Democrats, 8,415.
Corbyn keeps his seat, thank God. That would
The
have been
total number of ballots rejected is as follows. Want of an official mark, 0.
That would have been an unbearable indignity. That would have been unbearable. Sorry. Yeah, this is a rough day. This is a rough day. He looks depressed. Yeah, he is. I would imagine so. Damn, Jeremy looks super somber. Yes, I would imagine so. Can the UK claim US gay? They are, kind of. Kind of. Yeah, kind of. After the referendum, there should be no Remain position in Labour. This is a thumping, man. I mean, the public made a choice. The public made a choice. And you've had a certain element of the population, the Blairites, say, we don't care. Think about that for the moment. Think about that. You vote for a candidate, and the people in power say, yeah, we don't care. We don't like that. We don't like that choice. Give us another choice. We'll agree with that choice. Now, the problem here is one party says, or the good thing, I suppose, one party takes it as their banner, meaning they are marching in the streets with that banner. Brexit! We're going to get it done. And you go through, 3 prime ministers? Theresa May, a Remainer. Cameron, so much of a Remainer, he nearly cried after the vote, and he quit. And now you have Boris, who's not a Remainer. Nobody believes he's a Remainer. I'm the guy that's going to get it done. And he, through Herculean effort, and the sad part about this is, I don't even fucking like him. And I, at the very least, can recognize, God, man, he is trying everything in his power to get Brexit done, despite this broken parliament. Now, again, a lot of this was done in order to try to get the election, but nevertheless, he did try. The public could see him trying. And despite all of his losses, if you remember, he would lose like 7 or 8 times straight in regards to what he wanted politically, the public was still supportive. He wasn't budging in regards to the polling. That was a wake-up sign. That should have been a canary in a coal mine, that this is a problem. Meaning, whatever you want to take a poll of, meaning from the standpoint of the public support for Brexit, you can also take a poll of who they're voting for. Some of this has to do with personality, yes, but the personalities in this case are, you can say, abstract concepts for the things that they want. Do you want to stay? Do you want to go? Or do you want to fit and sit? Which one you want? This was a referendum. They voted once again to leave. I don't think you can put this at the doorstep of Corbyn in its entirety. I mean, after all, Corbyn, you can make a case that says, yes, he was weak in not fighting for the things that he believed in, or you can even make a case that he was weak for not fighting for the public. Because again, it was the public that chose to leave. So yeah, fair enough. You can lay this at the doorstep in that sense. But that's not the way they're talking about it. What Neil is talking about is something different. What these other people are talking about is different. They are talking about Blairites, that dirty socialists. The public doesn't like that socialism stuff. And that's why he lost so badly. He was anti-Semitic. So if you talk about Palestine, that's also bad. He was, and they're going to hoist every failing that they can think of and say that Corbyn was associated with that particular failing, which is why the public, mostly, for the most part, punished that party. All of these other people who lost in all those various seats are going to say, it wasn't me, it was that fucking Jeremy Corbyn. I am free of guilt and blame. I am blameless. I'm wearing a white shirt, running through the daisies. I am blameless. Corbyn was the fault. All of them are, mark my words. Mark my words. Now, the reality of it is, the issue was Brexit. And the very thing that was the main and key issue in this election was the thing that he abdicated a choice on. Yes, that's a horrible decision to make. And if he made that decision alone, then fair enough. And whoever made that decision with him is just as guilty of negligence. Fair enough. You could look at the Brexit result, of the Brexit party taking those parliamentary elections. Again, a canary in a coal mine. They kept thinking, Remainers, well, at this point, we've worn the public down for the last 3 years. Clearly, at this point, they want to stay. And it didn't matter that you would get the Brexit party going to Parliament. And yeah, that's not necessarily an easy mapping in regards to British society, because I don't think the Brexit party is going to win any seats, especially if you have somebody who's pushing for Brexit. The Brexit party got a little smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where it was insignificant. Because Bojo has said, I'm the guy for Brexit. They believe him. It's not Corbyn, man. At least not in the sense of what he's pushing for. It is Corbyn in the sense of taking a certain political cadence that looked and was weak and not standing up for the public in their referendum result, despite the fact that you have all of these vultures behind you to still stand up for the public in spite of. In this case, what it looks like potentially is that maybe he thought, I don't have a lane. Lib Dems want to revoke. These other guys want to do it. Maybe the best lane is fence sitting. I don't know. I don't know what was going on in his head. I know, just from looking from where I was, that it looked bad. It's the Clinton stuff. It's like you say everything in the world that you want to say about Trump. He has a grab him by the pussy video, and his polling numbers doesn't change. And yet, these guys are acting like it's in the bag. We're going to win this. And it's like, wait, his numbers aren't changing. It doesn't matter what he says. Doesn't matter what he does. His numbers stay the same. And so do yours. Yours aren't that much better. And they still take it as we're going to win. We're going to win. Yeah. Their position on this just didn't make sense. I'm sorry. I don't even know why. Like, I don't know why somebody had to explain that to them. Like, you're given an unsellable quantity. You're trying to sell ice to an Eskimo. The public is not looking for another referendum. They've had their referendum. The public wants you to do your job, get it done. That's why he took the term, we're going to get it done. We're going to get it done. Get Brexit done. Get Brexit done. That's what we're going to do. We're going to get Brexit done. They weren't looking for this intellectual thing of hope. It wasn't about hope. It wasn't about the NHS, even though I think the NHS is a worthy cause, no doubt, and it would have been the thing that bought me over. They weren't looking for these esoteric concepts. They wanted something very specific. And I guess you could say legal is not real in the sense of reality per se, and that it's a thought thing if it's anything at all. And so I guess you could say the legalities of what Brexit is to some degree esoteric, but it has real world consequences, which is the thing that they care about. We're sick of hearing about it. We just want to get it done. And one party can't talk about the very thing that they want to get done that has dominated the news for 3 years. Even during the course of the election, what dominated the news cycle was Brexit and what the person was going to do in regards to Brexit. And as many times as they would ask Corbyn, are you leaving or staying? And his position made no sense. It made no sense. Everybody knows that he's a Brexiteer. He can't even do what he wants to do in regards to policy while he is in the European Union. And this person, who is a Eurosceptic, going back decades, has taken a position of not saying anything at all. And he's the leader of the opposition. The people who are around him, his front benchers, are all Remainers. And the pitch, the selling point, is that these Remainers are going to go and get a deal that they don't want in the first place. And we're going to take that deal and we're going to put it up against staying. And we're going to let the public make a choice. Then you can see where this can go wrong in 1,000 ways. These guys don't want to leave in the first place. They're going to put some mutilated deal up. The public is going to say, yeah, fuck that. We're just going to stay. And it's going to have this patina of, well, the public just chose. The public didn't choose anything. You imposed a particular point of view on the public, and you would not even support your own bill that you went to get from the EU. I mean, this They had to know this was bad in 1,000 ways. And I don't know why they didn't think that was bad. Honestly, when I first heard this, it was during the PMQ. And I was like, there's no way that's their plan. Bojo said it. Bojo could be lying, but there's no way that's their plan. Bojo was right. Meaning he ribbing him on something that was just absolutely entirely accurate. And he would often rib him on stuff that was accurate. Those people who are sitting around, you don't want you to be prime minister. I don't know who's more terrified, the Tories or your benchers. Like, that stuff would bite because that stuff would just so happen to be true. And it also had a certain funny sting to it to make it that much worse. Like this is a disaster in 1,000 different ways from the standpoint of labor. And if you're the American audience, check into British television right now. If Bernie Sanders loses to Clinton, this is what will take place. Watch British television for the next 2 or 3 days. This is what would take place. This is the ghost of Christmas future if we lose. Everything is on the line. And everything is on the line because the goal and what they're going to say is he went too far to the left. We told him he went too far to the left. The only thing you can get is incrementalism. Time to our legend will say it. Went too far to the left. Went too far to the left. That's what they're going to say. That's why he lost. That's why he lost. Now, those questions don't occur to them with Clinton losing because at that point they say it was the fucking Russians. Just saying. Yes, I'm still bitter. Still bitter. I'm not ashamed. I could be bitter on my own show. Let's see what's going on now.
Donald's constituency. So, Sophie, what reaction has there been where you are then to the news that Jeremy Corbyn will not stand or not continue to stand for much longer as Labour leader?
Well, I think that
I was right again. I predicted this months out. No, I'm not excited about... Yes, I'm excited about being right. I'm always excited about being right. I feel joy in that moment. But this moment, this is not a clean win. Because this is not one of those things I wanted to be right about. I didn't see how he could lose, whatever this loss was, even if it was somewhat close, and retain his position. He had so many enemies that were after him, that were in his own party, that they were looking for any reason at all to try to rip him out of his seat. If you remember, they tried to rip him out of his seat once or twice before. So after a loss in an election, it becomes untenable. It's difficult to make the argument to stay. Also, if you remember, he didn't want to go into an election. That should have told you everything. Meaning, he hounded Theresa May like nobody's business because he thought he could beat her in an election. When Boris Johnson took power, he no longer wanted an election. And it was SNP, Lib Dems, who said, okay, let's have an election. And Labour, not wanting that, still holding on to the post, he got dragged to the woodshed, howling, screaming, bellowing in the moonlight, not wanting to go because I suppose he feared this. Let me see. I'm trying to find the last projected total. But I strongly suspected that his concern was a loss. And I'm strongly suspect that he knew he wouldn't win or would have a difficult time winning in a general election. This seat was his own political life. Meaning, how this election came out was always going to be, to some degree, a referendum on him because you can't sustain losing, 2 elections at this point? I just kind of assumed that stuff just went hand in hand. And being honest about how they were going to respond to a loss. This goes well beyond anything that I think they expected. All right, here's another one. Neil, who seems to, again, is going to blame the hell out of Corbyn.
Same policy stance that it's had in this election.
This election was a Brexit election. The next election won't be. This election was a Brexit election. The next election won't be a Brexit election. And I think after 5 years of Thatcherite government, there is no future for the Labour Party in supporting some kind of triangulation or some kind of watered-down version of austerity.
You stick with Corbynism.
I think our policies were very popular.
Okay.
People weren't complaining to me about our policies in this election.
Do you stick with Mr. Corbyn?
Well, Jeremy will issue a statement in due course and make a decision in due course.
What's your view?
I think it's too early to be speculating.
If he calls and asks for your advice, what's your advice?
He will make his mind up. I think it's... and he can speak for himself on this matter.
No, I wasn't asking for him. I was asking for your
speculation.
View. But I clearly I'm not going to get it, but that's fine. It's late at night, and you've got your count to go back to.
my view...
Yeah?
My view...
You're going to answer the question?
My view is that Jeremy Corbyn is a far more decent, progressive and effective person than many of his cheap and tawdry critics in the press and in the Conservative Party.
That's fine, but it doesn't answer my question. We'll leave it there. I'm sure we'll get to return to it in the days.
Tawdry. I need to start using that word. Cheap and tawdry. I like that. God, I love the way Brits say things. Cheap and tawdry in the press. Yes. You still have some people who defend him. Awesome. I love that. Because he's right, by the way. They are cheap and tawdry. And Neil seems to be trying to make everything about Corbyn. Oh, fuck's sake. For fuck's sake. Alistair Campbell. Let's hear what he has to say.
Not to a lot of Labour members.
Maybe not, but let me tell you something
briefly.
Else. Well, there's Mr. Landsman over there, right? You're going to talk to him in a minute. And they're delusional if they think the public are going to support their politics. And let me just have this one fact.
Quickly.
One fact. If Boris Johnson runs the full term, it will have been 50 years since any Labour leader other than Tony Blair won a general election. Can they let that sink into their heads and possibly start to reroute their politics back where people live their lives?
Is your party heading for a civil war?
That's an interesting question. I mean...
I hope not, because it's so obvious what has to happen.
Not to a lot of Labour members.
Maybe not, but let me tell you something
briefly.
else. Well, there's Mr. Landsman over there, right? You're going to talk to him in a minute. And
You know what he meant, right? It's so obvious what has to happen, you got to dump Corbyn. Well, Corbyn has just said he will not run in the next election. So Corbyn himself, for the most part, is taking himself off the playing field. It's a stomping defeat. What are you supposed to do as a Labour leader when you take a loss that significant? Hint, hint, Hillary Clinton. Hint, hint. Right here. Jeremy Corbyn will not lead the party into any future election. He's taken himself off of the playing field. I'm looking for an updated estimate. Right now, Conservatives have 161, Labour has 107, that's down 23, SNP has 22, that's plus 7, Liberal Dems down 6, they have 15 others, and they are down 15. All right, Emily Thornbury, let's hear her.
My friends, thank you for doing me the honour of electing me for the 5th time as your MP. But like all Labour voters in this constituency and beyond, I feel a bitter disappointment at the result that appears to be unfolding tonight. I feel distraught that we have lost so many great comrades in Parliament, and I also feel so disappointed for all the brilliant candidates I've met around the country who will have to wait their time to be in Parliament. The first time that we have lost vote share in opposition, and the biggest number of seats that we have lost in opposition since the dark days of 1983. I was thinking back to the words of Neil Kinnock on the eve of that election, warning the ordinary, the young, the ill, and the old what would happen to them if Thatcher won. And we need to sound all the same warnings tonight, as well as sending a warning to businesses and their employees, our public services and their brilliant staff about what Boris Johnson's Brexit will mean for them. And my friends, this is just the start. Because if we remember how that 1983 election empowered Margaret Thatcher to destroy mining communities, to privatise our essential utilities and services, to embrace apartheid South Africa and embark on the misery and cruelty of the poll tax, we can only imagine what Boris Johnson will try to do and the power this election has given him. And that is why, while I want to thank all the activists in this room and those that I have met up and down the country for the great fight that they've put into this election, we all know the real fight has to begin now to save our country, to save our economy, to save our public services from the worst excesses of Boris Johnson's majority and the terrible consequences of a Johnson Brexit. This duplicitous, gutless, reckless Prime Minister has been elected on one issue alone, wrapping himself in the lie that he is the only person to get Brexit done.
He is. He is. That's not a lie. He is. He is. You don't believe in Brexit. He does. You have taken a position that has abdicated responsibility from the standpoint of the referendum. This de facto Brexit stuff is somewhat dishonest to me, but whatever. At the very least, you have the fig leaf of saying you're going to put it back to the public. From the standpoint of the person who's going to get Brexit done, he is. He won that argument. He didn't just win that argument. He stompingly won that argument. He won that argument with a mandate. Mandy. It is projected right now. I mean, I don't know if she knows this, but it is projected at this moment, adjusted for polls, adjusted for the actual results. Tories will get 357 MPs, 39 more than at the 2019 election. Labour will get 201, the SNP 55, Lib Dems 13, the Greens 1, Brexit Party none. He won that case. I'm sorry. He won that case. Even if it was a single issue. Here's the catch. The fact that it was a single issue brings to attention that you abdicated responsibility for that single issue. And that whatever you might want from the standpoint of Brexit, the public has a clear choice that it wants to get it done. You gave up the mantle. He picked it up and ran with it. And you didn't have a competing narrative in regards to Brexit. And you cowed the leader of the opposition. He's a grown man, so I'm not going to say you cowed him, but at the very least, he allowed the influence of the various people who were around him whispering in his ear to take precedence over representing the actual voting public that said they wanted to leave. For fuck's sake. And now you're going to get out and give this speech. This rousing, I'm angry, I'm mad. 1 month. How do you guys have an election in 1 fucking month? I'm not bitching at the electoral system, even though I guess I am. But it just seems like not enough time to ever make your case known. But by the same token, 80, I mean, this is a brutal beating. There's nothing else to call it. You're spitting at the bully as he walks away. You better hope he doesn't come back. Let's hear.
But the danger that we all now face is that he will feel empowered.
He is empowered. I guess that's kind of my point. He's been tried in the fires of the public's will. And you might say it was one issue, but it was one powerful issue that has been overarching in regards to its impact on the lives of the UK. You had one argument to make, and you made two key mistakes. One, you should have been listening to this channel, because I would have told you that the public is not looking for another referendum in the strictest sense of the term referendum. The vote itself is the referendum. Bojo puts up his deal and they say, this is what I want to do. And they turn to Labour and say, what do you want to do? And Labour doesn't have, they don't know. They turn to Lib Dems. The Lib Dems says, we want to get rid of Brexit. Public is getting its choice. I mean, I hope you understand what I mean. The public was not looking for a second referendum. You're arguing something that the public is not even on board. Like, they're not there. We're talking about ice cream and you're talking about cake. These are two different conversations. I want to get Brexit done. Great. We want to have a referendum. Well, no. This is the referendum. He's putting up his plan of what he wants to do. He wants to get Brexit done. They're putting up their plan. They don't want to do Brexit at all. Where's your plan? Where's your science project? Oh, we don't have a science project. We want to, talk about it first. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. And I don't know why you didn't know that. So that's the first point. The second point is that the public has been hinting to you what it wanted. And again, I don't know what was going on behind the scenes. I don't know if this was a situation where Jeremy Corbyn thought politically he didn't have a lane to go on and the public wasn't going to believe him from this context of Brexit. I don't know. But I do know this didn't work. This didn't work. And because Corbyn was a person who's attached to it, what he stands for is going to get mangled into this. And that's the worst to come. Like, Boris Johnson is in power. Yes, that's one thing. But from the standpoint of the left in the UK, the Blairites are going to mingle qualities of Corbyn. Oh, he wanted broadband access. That didn't work. It's going to be like a, oh God, what's the guy's name here in the United States? He was a peacenik. I can't think of his name, but he got throttled by Ronald Reagan. And they used that to attack lefties. It'll come to me. It'll come to me. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. Don't say anything. I'm sorry, I gotta look this up because this is bugging the shit out of me. Mondale. Is it Mondale? No, Reagan beat Carter, but I think it was Mondale. I mean, but like he got throttled. Am I right? Am I right? But I guess you get my point. This is going to be used to attack just the very basic idea of being a lefty. And this would not be a good day. Think for the moment of the day after Clinton loses. And think of it from the standpoint of being a lefty, a Sanders supporter, on the day after Clinton loses. What do you feel? And be honest. Be honest. Don't, you're at church. You're in a confessional. It's just you and God. At 3 a.m. between you and your God. A text message comes to you. You're out of it. You're not paying attention. Clinton loses. She's trounced by the Electoral College. Do you smile? Are you horrified? Is it a little bit of both? For me, it was, a little bit of, God, I don't know what this means, and a pretty decent helping of, you cheated my guy. Ha, I told you we were going to lose. If I'm being honest, it was that. It was, you cheated my guy. You cheated my guy. Nobody cared about you cheating my guy. And beyond that very basic point, this very basic notion of you selected somebody. And selected, I just mean, their populace won. And instead of putting up our populace, the entire party made a choice that the person who we want to hold that standard is the most establishment candidate ever. We don't care what the audience wants. This is who we are going to choose. And it felt a little bit good that she lost. I'll say it. I know I've said it plenty of times because I've bashed her relentlessly, but you get my point. It's not that I love Trump. It's more so that I like Clinton losing. Flip that on its head and push this to the UK. What does it mean for the opposite to take place? Meaning, technically, or not technically, think of it as the exact same thing. But instead of lefties thinking to themselves, I'm glad he lost, it's right-wing Democrats or Blairites looking at the guy who they in no way wanted to win, saying to themselves, ha, I'm glad he lost. And in the same way that we hefted all of these failings and fuck-ups, all of these things that the public wanted that they didn't necessarily want to give, we hoisted all of those things in the air and said, we told you that you were going to lose. The public wasn't looking for establishment, status quo, Obama 3.0. They were looking for these populist policies. And they couldn't get it with you. And so the other guy was at the very least talking about economics. They went the other way. They're going to flip this on its head. Jeremy Corbyn was too far to the left. This Corbyn project is finally over with. Corbyn needs to step down. And not just Corbyn needs to step down. People pushing policies like this, we've already seen the effect of these particular policies when they're put up into the election. Real-time Dark Legend did it just now. See what's going to happen to Bernie Sanders. We don't have a queen in this country, nor do we even have a parliament. But he still applies it exactly to Bernie Sanders. He is waiting for the day. He is waiting for the day. Real-time Dark Legend is waiting for the day that if Sanders loses, where he can come on this channel and watch me cry. That's what he wants, that asshole. Yeah, I'm talking about you. I'm saying that you're one of the Blairites that are yelling with joy at the failure of Corbyn in this way, especially with the level and the pounding that this means.
To dictate our country's direction on every issue. Well, we may be hurting tonight, but we are not beaten. We will tell Boris Johnson no. Our fight is not over. Our fight is just starting.
No, I got it. Wait, stop. You are beaten. You are beaten. Let that sink in. I'm sorry. You need to let that sink in. Don't come out without reflection. You are beaten. You need to question, Remainer, why? Why? Why are you beaten to this degree? Let that sink in. I'm not picking on Emily Thornbury here. I'm just making the point that you're going to give the speech. And the speech runs counter to reality. You are beaten. Accept it. Lay there. Sit there for a bit. Check to make sure you don't have any broken bones. Accept the fact that you were beaten and let the guy walk away. He may come back. Let it wash over you. It's not because of Jeremy Corbyn, I tell you that much. But that's what they will say. The fact of the matter is, if Brexit was settled, and you had Corbyn and Johnson in an election, that's a different election. It just is, fundamentally, all the way around. But that's not what we had here. You had the super bomb of Brexit. Yeah, this doesn't feel good. This does not feel good. All right, what are they talking about?
There was a bit of shock really in the room. Jeremy Corbyn. My sense here is very much that with Jeremy Corbyn effectively announcing that he is going to be departing the political stage soon, the race to succeed him is going to be kicking off pretty quickly.
Very interesting, Sophie. Thank you very much indeed. Well, the noise you can hear in the background now is actually that Boris Johnson's dog is at the count, Dylan, who we saw, obviously he took him voting with him earlier today. But certainly for the Prime Minister, the person, I say the Prime Minister, we don't know yet, do we? It's not totally confirmed. Dermot, back to you for the moment.
OK, Anna, thank you very much indeed. Lots of developments. They just keep coming in. Don Valley has fallen to the Conservative Party. Caroline Flint going there. And you may remember at the start of the campaign that a lot of flooding in the area, and it was thought that the reaction by the government might have had a lasting effect on the election. Who knows about that? Anyway, Caroline Flint, of course, supporting the withdrawal agreement bill against the Labour whip in many votes. Wasn't enough to save her, though, in that leave-leaning seats. There you go. Look how far...
I hope you heard that, right? I hope you heard that. Essentially, she supported the withdrawal agreement, but that wasn't enough to save her in this particular district as a leave-leaning seat. They didn't trust her. You're part of Labour. We don't trust you. Leave was the issue that robbed her of her seat.
The Labour vote fell 7.
Scotland doesn't want a 5-year Boris Johnson government and doesn't want to lose our status as a European nation. This is about choice. It's about saying very clearly it's not for Boris Johnson to decide Scotland's future, it's for the people of Scotland to decide it.
Well, so many questions flow from that. I might only have time to put one of them to you. We're just watching, by the way, Boris Johnson's car taking him back into central London. We don't know if he's going to Downing Street or to Conservative Party headquarters to congratulate the staff there. But Nicola Sturgeon, how does it happen, given we're looking at Boris Johnson's car anyway, not the man himself? But we know he's not changing his view. He's not going to grant he's not going to grant you another referendum.
I think... Look, I'm not... it looks as if, and we don't have all the results in Scotland yet, but it looks as if the position that I've put forward of offering people in Scotland a choice has yet again been endorsed by the people of Scotland in this election. So that question really has to be for Boris Johnson. He has no right to stand in the way of that choice. He's every right to oppose Scottish independence, and I think he has to think carefully. I think the Scottish Conservatives, who've suffered significant defeats tonight, have to think very carefully. This is about respecting mandates and respecting choice. Scotland cannot be kept in the Westminster system against its will. It can only be kept in that if it chooses that. And that is the choice that must be given. And I think the Tories really have to think long and hard about the position, because it is not a sustainable one in the long term, and probably not in the short term either.
And judging by the cheers...
Johnson, and this is another prediction, will preside over the breakup of the UK and Ireland. It's a prediction, but I think it's true also. There's a border, imaginary, but politically there, down the Irish Sea. Ireland and the DUP has fallen in this case. At that particular area was going to be in a alignment with the Republic of Ireland. How long is it going to take for Northern Ireland to be in the political and economic orbit of Republic of Ireland before they just said, why are we pretending? And why don't we just unify? Now, there may be some people in Parliament against that, but those people seem to have lost, meaning the DUP. And people who are more favorable to that have won. So, is this the breakup of the UK? Now, the SNP is not going to get that vote under Boris Johnson. I mean, look at how divisive this particular vote was. And so the Scotland vote, I would imagine, is once in a generation type stuff. This notion that they're being held and kept, they're in a political union of sorts. They got to, it's like if Texas decided to leave the union and they're screaming at the height of their lungs about, you can't keep us here. It's like, dude, nobody's beating you. you have political clout in the system. But I suppose she has a point. They've been able to hold their seats. It's Labour's bloodbath. Look at the bottom. Labour lost 43 seats. Conservatives has won 32. Burkow, I like Burkow.
Which deserves to be acknowledged. I did think that Jo Swinson made an extremely gracious concession speech on which she should be congratulated. That's a very difficult situation, and I think she handled it to her enduring credit.
I conceded that. I mean, obviously I'm delighted for the SNP candidate there, but I think it's a very difficult situation for Jo Swinson. I do personally, as a leader of a party, feel for her right now. And, it's difficult for women in politics, perhaps even more so.
Whether the SNP realizes it or not, Jo Swinson, an icon for I don't care what the public wants, was taken out. The leader of a opposition party lost their seat, and she was a key anti-Brexiteer. And I need to see who took her seat out. I think she said somebody from the SNP, but I don't think that stuff is just random. I mean, it's just brutal.
So than male leaders. So I've got a great deal of sympathy, and I agree that I think the speech she made there was incredibly gracious.
And just lastly, on the nature of the progress you're making there, you're interpreting it quite clearly as an endorsement of another independence referendum. But you've also mentioned, of course, the issue of Brexit. Scotland doesn't want to leave. Isn't partially your vote about that? It's not entirely an endorsement of independence.
Yeah. Well, of course it was
yes.
an emphatic
the answer is yes.
of Brexit. But, given how England has voted, it looks as if Brexit is going to happen. And therefore that makes it all the more important that Scotland has a choice about its future, because we've demonstrated yet again we don't want Brexit and we don't want to be outside the European Union. I will absolutely readily concede that not everybody who voted SNP yesterday will necessarily vote for independence in a referendum, but people must have that choice, and that's the fundamental issue of principle that was very much to the fore in this election and will be to the fore in the days and weeks to come.
Nicola Sturgeon, great talking to you. Thank you very much indeed. The leader, rather triumphant leader of the Scottish National Party. It's gone 4 o'clock. You're watching the Brexit election on Sky News. Let me take you through the headlines so far. And our Sky News forecast is predicting that the Conservatives will win the 2019 general election by a majority of between 66 and 86 seats. Boris Johnson, as you may have just seen, has retained his seat, with the Conservatives making big gains overall, putting them on course to win a large majority in line with the forecast. Jeremy Corbyn held on to his seat as well, but has announced he will not lead Labour into the next election.
I want to also make it clear that I will not lead the party in any future general election campaign. I will discuss with our party to ensure there is a process now of reflection on this result and on the policies that the party will take going forward. And I will lead the party during that period to ensure that discussion takes place and we move on into the future.
Wish you would have led that party on Brexit. That's what I would have wished. This is a horrible scenario. This is the worst of the worst outcomes, because not only is it going to be played as a rejection of just him, it's going to be played as a rejection of the left in its entirety. And the share of the vote, the 86 seats, god damn, that's brutal, man. Adam Clareton, Bernie has been inside fighting these guys half his life. He is fighting the good fight. Yeah, he is, but Jeremy Corbyn is, you messed up, Jeremy. You messed up. Yeah, this is not good. Is HA screaming Hillary is going to enter the 2020 race? I don't know. Only we Americans can save the UK from itself now, Cal's side. That's an interesting point, right? I had a conversation with, what's his name? Gordon DeMack, and I was making a point to him that the presidents and the prime ministers tend to go in tandem. So Reagan and Thatcher, Obama and Cameron. These characters are for the most part the same. Bill Clinton and Tony Blair. It gets weird when Tony Blair joins in with the neocon George Bush, but Trump and Bojo. But Bernie Sanders also works in that. Think about it for the moment. You're talking about populist politicians. And Bojo ran a populist campaign. And in this case, you're talking about another populist politician, just so happened, in this case, however, to be on the left. Even if you think of Blair and Bush, you had Bush, neocon, Republican, establishment, Blair, clearly neocon, labor leader, but establishment. I guess I'm saying in this case, you get this still populist rhetoric of sorts, and you still get this kind of weird parody, even with the Sanders in office. It's so strange. But the Sanders in office constrains the UK in somewhat of a way, because the UK is somewhat of a lapdog of the US. I don't mean that in a bad way, but I will say that you guys join in on a war, drag your country into something with your countrymen dying purely at the whims of the United States. And it was clear that Bush was cherry-picking that stuff. Gordon Brown even came out and said that the United States was hiding information and that type of stuff. I mean, just saying. Your spy services are some of the top-notch in the world. I don't believe for a moment that you didn't know that these guys were cherry-picking information. I just don't. All right. I'm going to end this. But this is painful to watch, man. Oh. Xavier Falls, the political correctness and early sex education are losing. Xavier Falls, the TV licenses and knife permits are good. No way. A knife permit. Is that what he is? He said a knife permit? Oh, that's horrible. That's horrible. Balthazar, I'm fully for Ireland reuniting and Scotland leaving. I'm for Ireland reuniting. Scotland leaving is a little different. It's a little different. But Ireland united, yeah. Yes. U.S. is a vassal state of the United States, yes. Michael Williams, yeah. The knife permit thing can't be real. That can't be real. God, I hope that's not real. But this is Bojo coming up with this stuff, so maybe. Hey, you, hi. Yeah, HA still screaming that. Who knows? The Democrats would do anything to stop Bernie. I don't think she'll get in the race. I'd be stunned if she gets in the race. How about bringing back the good old feather, the good old tar feather, great white shark? Yeah, this is a dark day, man. Honestly, this is a dark, dark day. Like, share, subscribe. I don't even know what to call this video. It's almost like just sharing my pain. Sharing my pain. But they're still predicting a massive number of seats, the largest going back to the 80s. And Corbyn, I feel bad for him.
And Nicola Sturgeon and the SNP.
Brexiteer got his foot in the door at number 10, and boy has he converted that leadership win. He's now converted it into the biggest majority for a Conservative party since 1987. Just take that in. I mean, he has become the most successful Conservative Prime Minister since Margaret Thatcher. That is an unbelievable achievement by him and his team. And yes, he...
Also, an unbelievable failure. He didn't do it by himself. He wasn't in a vacuum. I mean, yes, you got to give him credit for it. It's like if you and I are playing a game of chess and I take advantage of you, I'm going to go out and chess stump and go running around the building. By the same token, I was playing somebody and that person could have utterly and entirely collapsed and had a theory of the case that just didn't necessarily line up. Meaning, it wasn't something that I did entirely on my own. I did have somebody to help me win it. And that person just so happened to be the opposition. Corbyn, God, this was, talk about the worst case scenarios. And I don't know who I'm more pissed at. I mean, part of me, I guess, is pissed at Corbyn. But Jesus Christ, Brexit will dominate. What is this? What is this? Brexit will domino other European countries to follow suit. It will vindicate the anti-establishment movement across Europe, not to mention the economic ramifications. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you remember, when the French people were protesting, some of those guys were screaming Brexit. You have Italy with a government that is Eurosceptic. I mean, these guys were trying to prevent them from forming the government that they wanted, and they used that in their own internal politics. Yeah, you may have a situation where other governments start to pull away, or at the very least, get wiggle room. I mean, France is never going to put that up for a referendum, and it's hard to see how the other governments pull it off. But the fact that Britain did it means that the president has been set. Also, the fact that the public, again, codified it through the vote, the fires of a public election, again, gives it that much more of a oomph behind it. I don't know what Europe is thinking of at this point, but whatever they're thinking, the Prime Minister has been empowered by the public with a mandate. And whatever you want to think about any other issue, the one issue is Brexit. All of the strength that they've given him in regards to the Parliament is on the one issue of Brexit. They deprioritize everything else that he was saying. We're talking about Brexit. We're going to get Brexit done. That's all. Don't want to say anything else. We're going to get Brexit done. And so that's what they've done. I mean, that's their political strategy. That's been their political strategy. Is Brexit a populist move? Yes. Left and right. Left and right. On both sides. I mean, you can legitimately make an argument for Brexit on the left. I mean, think about it for the moment. What Jeremy Corbyn wanted to do, the nationalizations and all this other stuff, he could not do in the European Union. So how do you get your agenda fulfilled if you can't do it in the European Union? To some degree, you need to be out of the European Union, or at the very least enough room where you can pull that stuff off. He would have had to take a Brexit position in order to be able to do what he wanted to do. And he still got cowed anyway. Still got cowed. Why couldn't Corbyn say, yeah, we want Brexit too, but we want it our way? That's what they did. That was their position, Moni G. Originally, that was Labour's position. Labour's position literally was, we will honor the commitment of the referendum. The public says it wants to leave, fine. We're just going to do it softer. Baby soft, with talcum powder at the bottom that has that clean scent. Brexit did not have a definition. You could have given it your own. And you could have fought over your version of Brexit. Problem. People who are in the front bench of the Labour Party didn't believe in Brexit. And if you're having a contest where you're saying this is our version of Brexit and this is their version of Brexit, one guy means it. Think about Medicare for all. Think about Medicare for all. And you have various people running in the race. Sanders says, I wrote the goddamn bill. That's my bill. Am I going to raise taxes on the middle class? Yes, I am going to raise taxes on the middle class, but they're going to get rid of all of the other bills and everything else. And most people will see a jump in their pay larger than any time for the most part of the century. They will have a modest increase in taxes, but their health care at this point now is progressively done. It is not a thing that they take unto themselves. You pay according to your need. He will say that. He will be honest about that. Now you ask Warren, who's been screaming about Medicare for all, but doesn't support the bill, talked about it in all of these ways that wasn't indicative of Medicare for all, and then finally gets trapped in a scheme of her own making where she has to explain it. How are you going to do it without raising taxes on the middle class? He says they're going to raise taxes. How are you going to do it without raising taxes on the middle class? Now, right off the bat, the public assumes that taxes will have to go up to pay for Medicare for all. They assume it. Why do they assume it? Because they know healthcare is expensive, somebody has to pay for it, and they're going to pay something on their own bill if they have the ability to do so. They also know that other places around the world, the famous line pays 50% of their taxes in order to get that socialized medicine. So you've just told them that they don't have to pay, that only billionaires and millionaires are going to pay. And they're skeptical of this. And then you put out your healthcare plan and how they're going to pay for it. And it looks strange. You have the military budget attached to it. It's not just the military budget. You're also attaching immigration. Mexico is going to pay for our healthcare. And all of this stuff has to get done for you to make that work. And then the con is revealed. And you put out your pan and it's Pete's plan. It's a public option. And there's nothing wrong with that. The issue here is that you're now telling people that in 3 years you're going to fight like hell with a weaker Congress to get Medicare for all passed. It's a fig leaf. It's a illusion of sorts. I mean, ultimately, it's just something that you wrote down on paper that has no way of actually coming into existence. I can write anything down on paper. Jamarl Thomas is going to be a billionaire because there's going to be a leprechaun that drops money outside, and he's going to take that money. He's going to play a lotto ticket, and he's going to get billions of dollars when he wins the lotto. You can write anything down on paper. It doesn't necessarily make it true. There's a political reality to the way these things come about, and nobody in their right mind, rational human being that's being honest with themselves, believes you're going to get 2 bites at the apple on this particular piece of legislation. If you meant it, you do it all in one. The public sees that and is skeptical. Now, convert this for the moment over to Jeremy Corbyn. Bojo, I'm the guy that's going to get it done. Now imagine for the moment, he's kind of like Sanders in the sense of healthcare. I believe in Medicare for all. Yes, I'm the guy that's going to get it done. The public believes him. That's the guy. He believes it, full-throated. This is the guy, believes it, full-throated. And somebody else is also running with Medicare for all. And that person has found themselves to be wanting, not entirely serious about it. Even Jake Newer comes out and says it looks like she's not entirely serious. No, she wasn't. She wasn't. And convert it into the UK where you have Corbyn running with a Brexit plan. He's a Brexiteer, but he doesn't speak about that. And the people who are around him are Remainers. How do you make the argument about your Brexit versus theirs when it seems that everybody that's around you that's saying anything about it doesn't want to go anywhere, and that the guy who does want to go somewhere keeps his mouth shut? Do you believe them on that? Meaning, is a fig leaf enough for enough to people to say, okay, yeah, I believe Labour is going to do something about it? And Remainers to say, I think Labour is fucking around. I don't think they're going to do anything about Brexit in real terms because the people who they have pushing this stuff is Remainers. So I can get over the hurdle and vote for these guys. But either way, you have a problem of sincerity with it. If Labour would have kept the same position from the beginning where they said, look, we're going to give our Brexit, then they would have had to convince the public that they were indeed going to go for Brexit and not this backstepping that continuously happened. They kept pulling back from the position. It made the position to be somewhat unbelievable, going all the way from the point of, yes, we're going to back Brexit. We're going to go with what the public said they wanted to, we want a second referendum. And you could see it all along the way as Jeremy Corbyn backtracked and backtracked and backtracked over the past year. You would have to believe that the public changed their mind. And I don't know why you believe that. And you're, again, stuck with the situation of this guy clearly means it, and this guy, maybe. And that's even if Labour kept their Brexit position. They would have still had to have a position where they sincerely, the public sincerely believed that they believed in that position. And even if it was softer, at the very least they believed that they believed in that position. Not in the sense of trying to rework an agreement and this other stuff, but in the real sense that, yes, Corbyn is a Brexiteer. I would even argue he should have leaned into it, meaning be the Eurosceptic. Be the person that says, yes, I'm going to get us out. I'm in a Tony Benn school, however you want to put that out. I'm in the Tony Benn school of Eurosceptics. I've been a Eurosceptic before many of these people were even born. And yes, in order to get my plans done, I need to be out of the European Union, so I'm going to get us out of the European Union. Now, if you take that cadence, people might believe you. The problem is the people who are going to be negotiating the contracts or whatnot on Brexit or negotiating the deal are Remainers. Like, look, it's possible that they looked at election and how to run this election and got stuck on this notion of no one would ever believe us as much as they're going to believe Bojo in the context of Brexit. By the same token, you may have Labour voters that just needed to believe you. They just needed something. They were current Labour voters. You might have needed those people to just kind of say, okay, Labour has a position that's weaker, but yes, I'm going to go with it. As opposed to what looks like it happened where Labour gave up on Labour. Yeah, this is a dark day. This is a dark, dark day. Right here. The knife license came to be before Bojo. Okay, I see. I'm sorry. Xavier Foster. The knife license came before Bojo. All right, guys. It's late here, and I'm supposed to be at the radio station in the morning to talk about Brexit. So I'm going to say like, share, subscribe, and I don't think I opened in this one. The pain was just too great to bear. But this content is brought to you by you because they demonetize these videos. So we like to say even $1 helps. And for the people who help the super chat and so forth, thank you very much. You are absolutely appreciated. The election results are going to pour in through the course of the night. I'm probably done for the night. I'm starving. I haven't eaten today. And so I'm going to go get something to eat. But it's a dark day, man. And it's a dark day in the sense of what's going to take place after this. What people are going to say, meaning the political class, as they attack Corbyn and blame it all on Corbyn. It's all Hitler's fault. It's all Hitler's fault. If he would have just listened to me. In this case, I wish he would have been listening to this show, or at the very least Galloway. Because abandoning Brexit. And you know the wild part? They said Labour was able to connect with some of the wealthier areas, but lost the heartland. Isn't that shit familiar? Isn't that familiar? That happened in our election also. The guy who represented the middle class in this case, sincerely represented the middle class, get out-populist by a billionaire who will attend to the interests of their class immediately and during the course of Brexit. Corbyn fucked up royally. Sanders supporters, don't look away. Don't look away at this. Feel that pain and let that power you on to not let this happen here. We don't have the overarching thing of Brexit. So fair enough. You get to fight an election against essentially a billionaire himself, for the guy who's a socialist. So our terrain is different. Our terrain has more advantageous for Sanders in this case. Fair enough. But in a sense of what is going to take place during the course of this loss, the amount of pain and hatred and bitterness and vitriol that's going to be dumped on Jeremy Corbyn in the coming days, and the all blame it on him and those lefties. They moved too far to the left. That fight is still going to take place. And it's going to take place with Labour, especially from the standpoint of Corbynites, and a weaker position because they're going to blame this historic loss on Corbyn. The Brexit narrative may be there, but that's going to be deprioritized from the standpoint of it's Corbyn's fault. This is going to be painful, but absorb that pain in order so that that shit doesn't happen here, because the same thing would happen here, where they would blame it all on Sanders, just like we blamed it all on Clinton, and they tried to do everything that they could to deflect. Don't let this happen here. Also, from the standpoint of don't listen to people who hate you. Sometimes your enemy may say something about you that gives you clarity about something, meaning especially if something is true. But oftentimes, especially when it's subversive, in the sense that these people are supposedly within my party, but they hate my guts. They are doing things. They're out to get you. That doesn't necessarily mean you're paranoid. You could actually have somebody that's out to get you. If you're a part of the Labour team, the Blairites hate you. If you're a Corbynite, they hate you. They hate you. You undermine this very notion of what they are in regards to the party structure, not to mention in their classes, ideology of the world. You don't factor. You make them look bad. You're their left. You're what the left should be. But as long as they're there, you're not. At the very least, they can say we're the left. The same thing is true as here in the United States. The Democratic Party's identity, for the most part, said we're the left. And Sanders is standing there, clearly more trusted, more earnest. And if he gets in office, what it means to be a Democrat fundamentally changes. In all reality, Sanders is kind of like a Labour Party, with Democrats being like lib Democrats, meaning for all intents and purposes conservatives. The con that has taken place in the United States is this belief that there are actually multiple parties in the United States. There's one party. If the Communist Party in China just split and say, you know what, we're going to be two parties right now. That's what we're going to do. And you had some people that were a little harsher, some people that were less so. And they try to sell this notion that, no, we're really two parties. We're not one party, we're two parties. See, we have Bob and we have Ted. Bob and Ted are running in a race against each other. We'd call bullshit. Especially if the worldview of the people involved in the process are fundamentally exactly the same. One is called a communist and one is called a communist. A communist. And the communist runs against a communist. And they battle it out, and they have their wrestling match. And whoever wins that, becomes president of China or whatever. How can you say that's not what happens here? Yes, there's a difference in the standpoint of identity, but is that the end-all, be-all in regards to what it takes to be a party? And from the standpoint of looking at the military budget, from the standpoint of looking at just the philosophy of governance, these neoliberal governments and all this stuff, they agree. But they're in agreement from the standpoint of a class. If you're looking at it as one class is capture of both, then ultimately the issues of economics can get dropped because this is not a big issue for us. Yes, we may fight over how much you can rate the public. So there's a gradation there. But if you're talking about real things that matter, for the most part, they agree. The military budget, they agree. If you look at Obama's policies, look at Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton pushed through one policy after the next, the the Telecommunications Act, the destruction of welfare, the destruction of Glass-Steagall, NAFTA. He would have got rid of also privatized Social Security. The deal had already been worked out with Newt Gingrich if it wasn't for Monica Lewinsky. That's a Democrat. Not to mention the expansion of NATO. Then Bush comes in office and people are flipping out. But Obama gets in and expands Bush's policies from the standpoint of military. And yes, he throws his body every bit as much as Bush to protect the banks. Greenlit the war in Saudi Arabia. I guess the point I'm making to you is there may be modest differences, but a modest difference shouldn't be the entirety of being in a sense of a party. Especially when the perspective of the world that these two parties take are fundamentally the same. Neoliberal, militaristic, finance is the greatest thing in the world. Billionaires not just should exist, but we should help and give them more and more of the planet, of our coffers. Green New Deal, yeah, not so much. We don't really want to go there and spend money on that stuff. We don't like this notion of health care for all, but we will be modest in what we give. It's a framework of the world. Well, Sanders is a different framework of the world. The people who he represents are just fundamentally different. And what he believes government can do, what he believes government should do, is fundamentally different, even in regards to business. This argument that businesses should grow infinitely, as if that's the end-all, be-all of what we require businesses for. It's just, it is necessary to process this loss, and to process this loss in a way where it scares the shit out of you for what may take place here if Sanders wins the primary and loses. And to be very clear that many of the people who are part of the Democratic establishment are not in any way hurt by Trump winning. They may boo and yell and all this other stuff, but at the end of the day, they are not hurt. Nancy $1 million has $100 million in the bank. You think Nancy Pelosi is hurt in any way by Trump winning outside of just being annoyed by Trump being in office? She's not. And she will be one of those people celebrating in her room if it was a situation where Trump ends up winning. Just saying. All right, it's getting late. There's one more that I missed. Here we are. Adam Charlton. Good night, Bernie 2020. Bernie 2020 indeed. I still say, and I've said it freely, I've accepted this. I've claimed this. I have my... No, I don't. I was gonna laugh flagrantly. But I strongly believe he wins. I don't say that in a bullshit way. I say that in a way where it strongly, for whatever reason, and this could be something that I'm absorbing from the outside, so fair enough, that could be possibly true. I'm just the man in this front. But I've been staring at the polling and all of this stuff for a while, and staring at or thinking about what could potentially happen and why it would potentially happen, and Sanders' theory of the case in regards to the way he's pursuing the campaign. And it is very possible that they are undercounting him. And they are undercounting him while Elizabeth Warren is in the race, pretending to ape him. And while he's still 1 and 2 in a polls, in spite of that. Meaning, even if they're not, even if the polling is exactly what the polling is, he's still in an extraordinarily strong position to win that. You look at the amount of support, you look at the people who love the guy, you look at the people who are donating money, you look at the amount of money that he has, and you look at all of these factors, and all of these factors are in his direction. And you have all of these people who are like, no way, he can't win. And their only reasoning is he's going to be cheated. Not that he can't win the election. I will make the point to you that you get one cheat before people start burning shit down. They will throw all sorts of money in the world at him. And I am real dodgy on these voting machines. But does he have a chance and a shot? Yes. Yes. And for the first time in your lifetime, I would wager to you that this is the first time in your lifetime where something like that has happened. I mean, there's never been a person who's represented my interests in the sense of going into politics where you can actually vote for the guy and have a clean idea that, yeah, this guy probably believes this stuff. This is new. This is new. This is new. This has never happened before, at least not in my lifetime. All right. Like, share. Oh, I guess this is going to be a contributor appreciation episode. This thing has gone for 2 hours. But guys, look, I really do appreciate your support. Like, share, subscribe. Share pain.